Welcome back to another Java fundamental class. I'm Manibhushan D'Souza, Assistant Professor in Computer Science Department at Dr. P. Dayananda Pai, P. Satish Pai, GFGC Mangalore. We have discussed about operators as well as the different data types which are used in Java program. Now let's look at a new concept called as control statement. Now to understand this, let's look at how the program really works. When you write a program, the program usually executes in a sequence. That means to say that the first line that you write will be executed by the compiler or by the CPU first. Once this line, whatever you have written, is executed, the program goes to the next line and it executes the next line. So the execution of program is usually in a sequential manner, but sometimes it is desirable to choose between some of the lines depending upon the various conditions that may occur at runtime. In other words, we may want to choose a certain statement to be executed and we may not like the other statements to be executed. In other words, we would like to select some statements, one or more, and ignore the other based on the condition. There are also some situation that arises wherein we may have to repeat a number of statement. In other words, suppose if you have a block of statement, we would like to repeat this whole thing again and again and again. Okay, so the kind of statement that help us to do that thing are called as control statement. So let's look at what are the control statement. In order to understand that, let us first learn the basics. The order of execution, that is the way in which the program code gets executed, this is usually, I've already told you, is in a sequence. This is usually called as flow of control. So that means to say that the control flows from one statement to the other statement to the other statement till the end of the program. Okay, if you don't specify any order, then the default order of execution of the program is linear. That is, it executes the first line, then executes the second, third, and so on. So one statement is executed at one time. But we are already familiar that sometime we would like to select few lines of code or maybe one line of code, and we may not like to execute the remaining code. So the statements, there are some statement in the programming language that will help us to decide whether to execute a particular statement or not, or whether to execute a particular set of statement over and over again. Now this kind of statement that help us to control the flow of execution are called as control statement. These will help us to either branch or repeat a set of statement within the program depending upon the conditions. Let's look at the conditional statement. What are these conditional statements? So conditional statement are those statements that help us to choose a set of statement over the other set of statement depending upon certain conditions. Because we are choosing one set of code, because we are choosing one set over the other set, So this is called as selection statement. We are selecting either one or a group of statement over that of the other based on certain conditions. These statements allow the flow of control of the program to be altered based on certain conditions that occur during the runtime. Okay. They are generally called as basic decision making statement because they help us to decide which statement has to be executed and which has to be ignored. In Java, there are two types of conditional statements are there. One is called as the if statement. The other one is called as the switch statement. So first let's look at what is if statement. If statement is also called as conditional branching statement because it branches the execution of the control based on the condition. Now let's look at the flow chart to understand how the things are working. So in the if statement, we have a condition. Conditions could be generated based on the relational operator, or they can be also an outcome of a Boolean operator. So based on the condition, we choose either a set of statement or we choose the other set of statement. So how does this work? So we have a conditions like if you say 10 greater than 5. So the answer, this is a condition. So you know that this is a condition. If 10 is greater than 5, in this case it is true. The flow comes here, and if this condition is there, the flow goes along the true direction, and whatever statement that you have written, only one statement is shown, but you can have more than one. They are executed and the flow continues. The flow will not go along this direction because only this condition, only one set of statement gets executed. That is why we say it is conditional branching. We have branched our code along this direction. We are not going in the other direction. Suppose if you have some other condition like 10 less than 5, so we have a condition here. So the outcome of it is false. In this case, the control comes here. If the condition is false, the control goes along the set of statements that are written in the other branch and the program terminates, or the program goes to the other line of execution. So how do we write this kind of statement? In order to write that thing, we have if, which is a keyword. So if followed by the two parentheses, and we write the condition. So condition could be any relational expression or Boolean expression. If the condition is true, then the set of statement that you write between if and else will be executed. In the slide, you can see only one statement because I can't write many statements in a PowerPoint slide. It's going to congest the thing. Suppose if the condition that is being evaluated here happens to be false, then all the statement between if and else will be ignored. They will not be executed, and the flow continues from the statement that is written after else till the block ends. So if you have a block here and if you have more than one statement, all the statement within the block will be executed and the flow continues thereafter. So you will notice that based on the condition, if the condition is true, this set of statement is executed. If the condition happens to be false, then this set of statement will be executed. In any way, we are going to branch between either this or the other statement. There is one interesting thing that you must note about the if statement, and that is the else part is optional. You can just write only if without the else part. In this case, the flow of execution works in this order. So if the condition is true, then this statement that you have written here will be executed and the program continues. If the condition happens to be false, all these statements that are written after the if statement, the block of statement that is written after if, will not be executed and the program continues with the next line of instructions. So let's look at this in action. I have the NetBeans ready with me. I'm going to start a new project and I'm going to call this as conditional statements demo, and I'm going to finish it off. Let me write a simple code. Suppose if I have integer value int x and int y, and I want to find out which among them is greater. So I'm going to assign a value x equal to 10 to the integer and y equal to 20 to the integer, and I'm going to compare them. So I will start with if open parenthesis x greater than y, then if you have only one statement here, you can simply write that one. For example, I'm going to say x is greater than y. There is no need to put a flower bracket. Else, I'm going to write s out y greater than x. Remember, I have only one statement here. So I have one statement. Because I have only one statement, there is no need to write the flower bracket. If it is just one statement, you don't need to write a flower bracket. If there are more than one statement, then you have to write. So a flower bracket, set of a pair of flower bracket, the open and close flower bracket, generally creates a block of statement. A block is considered as a single unit. So if the block contains only one statement, it is not really required because that one statement is itself is a unit. So let's run this program to see the output, and you will notice in this case the y is greater than x. So let me put a breakpoint here, and you notice the NetBeans is giving me some suggestion. I am not interested in that. Let me click on this line. So I have put a breakpoint here, and I am going to go to the debug, and I'm going to debug the program. So when I try to debug the program, this is how the code really works. And you notice here that the program has already executed these lines x equal to 10, y equal to 20, and it has stopped here. And I can see the value of x is 10 and y is 20. So I have encountered these things. Now let's go to the next line. So if you notice here, in order to go to the next line, I have to press this, and if I keep my mouse pointer here, it is going to say me that if I press the F7 function key, I can go to the next line. So this is what I am going to do instead of switching you from one place to the other, which is a bit irritating when you watch the video. I'm going to press F7. So here I'm trying to evaluate this expression, whether x greater than y. So you know that x is 10, y is 20. So 10 is not greater than 20. So what must happen is this line of code should not be executed, and the control must go to the next line after the else statement. Will it happen? So I'm in this line now. I'm going to press the F7, and you notice that the control has jumped directly here without executing these lines. So this is how the code really works. If I press one more F7, the program is going to terminate. That's the end of it, because it's going to go to the print line statement, and it's going to show how the print line is actually working, which I am not interested in. So I will switch that thing. Suppose if I change x as 100, in that case, how it is going to work. So let me again debug this program. Again, to debug this program, I am supposed to press Control F5. I will not do that just for the first time. So if I run this again, you notice that the program has started from here. X is 100 and Y is 20. So it has done that thing. Now let me press F7. You know that 100 is greater than 20. So this condition is true. And if the condition is true, the statement after the if must be executed. So if I press F7, I'm going to do that. F function key F7, the statement is coming here. Look at the difference between this and the last statement. In the last case, when the condition was false, this statement was not executed. Now if I press F7, it will go into the print line statement, and it's going to show how the print line works. I am not really interested in showing you how the print line really works. So I am going to go here, and I am going to run this one, that is Control F7, that says step out of this one. What is the meaning of saying step out of this? Step out of print line statement. Don't show the print line statement. For your understanding, I am going to press the flow step into. So when I press step into, you notice a strange thing. The program actually goes to somewhere else that says print stream, and it's actually went to a function called as print line, and there is something called a synchronized print, and so on and so forth. We are not really interested in how the print line works. That's why what I am going to do is I am going to say don't show me that thing. I don't get the head and tail out of it. Just come out of this one. So step out of this function. I step out of this control, and you notice that I was here in the print stream, and I came back to my program. So it came back to my program. So that means to say that print line has been executed. If you really uh, confused about it, it has already printed y greater than x greater than y. How did it printed this? Because it has executed this line. Okay, and I am not really interested in how that really prints it, because it is not something that I'm really interested in knowing. Now I'm here now. You see that this is a print statement is there. Now what it must do? So it has printed all. There is only one line. It has printed all the statement between if and else, because I have only one line. Now what it must do is it must ignore the statement after the else statement. So will it do it? If I press F7 again, what's going to happen? You notice that it has just come out of that without touching the statement which are there between the else statement. So always concentrate on the green line, which is the current statement that is being executed, and it's actually terminating the program. The program has ended with this. So this is how it really goes. No doubt to say that I can always ignore this else statement also, because you're all familiar with the C programming language. In C also it is there. There is no need to put the flower bracket. It's not really required that you put the flower bracket when you have one line of statement. If you have more than one line of statement, suppose if you are printing s out, and if you are setting that is great, then there are more than one line of statement, then put the flower bracket. If it is just one statement, you don't need to type that flower bracket, because that one statement, it's what is the meaning of this, by the way, is when you print this one, when you type like this, the between these two, if you notice, NetBeans is also highlighting in yellow color. It says that this one thing up to here is considered as one piece of code, it's one block. So if there are more than one statement, you can create a block. Now, if there is only one statement, that itself is a block. There is no need to exclusively say that it is a block. Okay, so that's the idea behind it. So it's up to you. Some people put a flower bracket even if there is one statement. Others don't do it. It's up to you. Let's go and let's look at the other again. If I don't put the flower bracket, and if I've written like this, so some of you are getting confused. Now, how does Java treats this? Java treats it in this way, that I'm going to just put a backspace here. So Java treats it in this way. So up to from here to here, it's a if statement. The next statement is considered not part of if statement. So the condition, the execution of the statement is dependent on the condition that is written here. If this condition is false, this statement will not be touched. If the condition is true, this statement will be touched. What about the other statement? Other statement that you write is not part of the block, because I have not put the flower bracket. Remember, if I put the flower bracket, then these two are part of the block. If I don't put, then the first statement after if is considered as part of the block. The other statements are considered not part of the if statement. They just are written as usual. So be careful with putting the flower bracket. It makes a lot of sense. Let's look at the example I have already shown you. So how this particular statement works. So you check the condition. If the condition is true, one set of statement, in this case only one statement is written. The statement that is following between if and else, one or more, will be executed. If the condition is false, the statement after else, if there is a block, all the statement within that block will be executed. So if you notice here, if can I write like this? So can I put the block here and just don't put the block on the other side? This is perfectly valid. Remember, it's not that you have to put the, if you are putting a flower bracket here, you are supposed to put the flower bracket there. It is, such a rule is not there. Okay. If there is only one statement in the beginning, just write it without the flower bracket. If there are more than one statement, put the flower bracket. Remember, you're putting the flower bracket because you want to create the block. If the block has only one statement, forget the flower bracket. The same thing is true. Can I put the flower bracket here and ignore the flower bracket on the other side? It is true, provided you have only one statement after the else. So if you have more than one statement between if and else, and there is only one statement after else, you are free to do that. So let's look at the example here. So you notice here you have if the total marks of the student, total marks that you got in the examination is greater than the maximum that is allowed. So you have 800, I think, is the maximum marks. So if your total is more than 800, then that means you wrote some extra questions. So in that case, we say this is an error, and we make a note of error. So why this particular example is taken is, you notice that there are two statements. Because there are two statements, I am putting the flower bracket here. If it was only one statement, I would have ignored it. Now, what if you don't put the flower bracket here? Then the if statement will consider this, and after that, the next statement, it thinks it is outside the if. So it is just a normal statement. It thinks that it is a normal statement. This statement is only considered as part of a if statement. Then what happens is it will encounter else part. Remember, you can write if and you can ignore else, but you can't simply write else. That's not allowed. If you are writing else, it must be associated with the some if statement. Else can't be written simply. So what happens is when you don't put the flower bracket, the program comes up to here. The program is fine. It says, okay, either I will execute this or I will not execute this, and it will execute this line. And after that, when it comes to this point, it just says that I got an else here, which is not part of a if. Why it is not part of if is when you don't put the flower bracket here, the if block actually ends here. This is the end of if. The next statement is considered as a separate statement, and this is no way connected to the if statement because you have terminated the if. It is just the if it will encounter. So be careful with the how you put the flower bracket. Now let's come to the other part. Suppose if your marks, total marks is less than maximum marks, then you come here and then say, okay, this is your total mark, and maybe you do some other calculation because there are more than one line of statement that I need to be executed as a block. So I create a block by putting them inside a flower bracket. Next, let's look at the other type of statement. So once you know the simple things, you can go for complicating your life. So the second part is putting one if statement inside the other. Suppose if you have the outer if statement, wherein you have the if, then, and else and so on. Inside this, you can put one more if statement. So if one if statement is completely placed within other if statement, the statement that is placed inside the other, the inner statement, is called as nested. It's as simple as that. So you have outer if statement. Inside that, you write one more if statement. So this inner if statement is called as nested if. So let's look at it in a very simple example. So suppose if you have let's say three variables. Let me zoom it for you. So if you have three variables x, y, and z, and I'll take the z as some other value. Anything you can take it for that matter. Suppose if I write like this. So this time I'm going to show you a trick that Java is using. The NetBeans is using. It is not a trick of Java. So if you write if, and if you press Control space, what is going to happen? So NetBeans is going to give you a suggestion. So what do you want to do? You want to write if with just an expression, or if else, what you want to do? Now what if you just press tab here? You can select any one of them and press enter. Okay. What if you press tab here? So if you press tab here, NetBeans will complete the code for you. Okay, as simple as that. So during the examination, if you want to save some time, this kind of tricks, that is practical exam, if you want to save some time, this will help you out. As well as if you are really working in a company, then typing the whole thing can take a lot of time, and it's not a great idea. You can always use the tricks which are there in the IDE. Now let me come back to the program. So I am testing the condition. If x is greater than y, I have one statement. Inside this, I'm going to say if y is greater than z, greater than, I mean to say greater than z. Where did it go? Okay. Then I'm going to write the s out. Y is greatest. Okay. So what is interesting about this line of code is that you can see that one if statement is placed completely inside other if statement. So you have one if statement that is placed inside the other if statement. So this if statement is called as, the inner if statement is called as the nested if. Hope you get that thing. So let us run this program, I am going to make this as 10 in order for me to uh, execute it, and I am going to make this one as 2 so that the program flow goes properly, and I am going to put a breakpoint here. I will go to the debug, run my program up to the debug mode, and you will notice here I have encountered. Let me slightly go up. You will notice here, I will zoom it for you, so don't worry. Okay. So you will notice that the program has executed, and the program knows that x is 10, y is 20, and z is 2. So let's go ahead and let's press F7. So is the x greater than y? So x is 10 and y is 20. So is x greater than y? The answer is false. So what happens is the if statement is completely ignored and the program comes out. Let me run it again, and let me put x is equal to 100. In this case, what is going to happen? Let me run it again. I would have easily pressed Control F5, but I will do it directly for you. So I am still there. I've re-executed the program. So is x is now, you notice x is 100 and y is 20. I am going to press F7 to go to the next statement. So what happens? This condition is true. So it's going to enter into this if loop. So I mean if statement in the if block. So now it is encountering one more if statement. Y is 20 and z is 2. So if this statement is true, y greater than z is true statement. So it's now if I press F7, it goes into this statement and it's going to print that. And again, let me remind you what is the shortcut for that. Next time I'm not going to do that thing. So to come out of this one, the shortcut happens to be Control F7. This is the last time I'm going to show that thing. Next class onwards, I will just press Control F7 on my keyboard, which you may not see on your monitor, but on your video, but you can do that thing. So if I press Control F7, I'm going to come out of it, and that will be the end of the program. Okay. Let me go to the next thing over here, and I'm going to make y as 25. In this case, how does this program works? So I'm going to go here and I'm going to run this one. So your program is up to here. I'm going to press F7. You know that x is 100, y is 20. So this statement is true. It's going to go into the next if statement, the inner if statement. Y is 20 and z is 25. So this condition is false. So what's going to happen if I press F7? It's going to just leave that block and it's going to just come out of that particular block. This is how the nested if works. So let's come back to the PowerPoint. So this is the nested if. So just to give you an example, here the example has been complicated a bit. You notice that you have the outer if statement, and there are fortunately two nested ifs are there. So this is one if. Remember, I have not put the flower bracket because it is one line there. And next you have one more if statement. So there are two nested ifs inside one if. So you can have any number of if inside the other if. It's all valid. Now let's look at the next type, and that is called as if else ladder. So how does it goes? So you start with the if, and if you put a condition, if, and if put the condition. If the condition is true, you execute this statement. If the condition is false, then you come to the else part. After else, there is one more condition. And if this condition is true, then you execute, come out of the program. If this condition is false, you go to the else of this statement, this if. Again, there is one more if. Again, check the condition. If this condition is true, you execute the statement after this if and come out of the program. If this condition is false, you go to the else of this if. So you notice that there is if else, if else, and so on. So there are continuous if else are there. So let's look at this in action. So you check the condition of the first if statement. If the condition is true, you execute the program and come out. You execute the statement 1 and come out of the program. If the condition is false, if this condition is false, you come here and what you encounter is in the else part, one more if. You check that condition. If this condition happens to be true, if this condition is true, you execute. So you came here, you execute this statement, go out of the program. Again, you were here, you check the condition is false, you come here. When you come here, if this condition is also false, so you tested here, you come up to this point, if this condition is false, so you're not going in this direction, but you go to the other direction. So if this condition is false, you go to the else statement. In the else, you have one more if. Again, there is a condition. If this condition is true, you go here and complete the program. If this condition is not true, then you go to the else part of it. In the else, there may be some condition or there may not be any statement, and finally you come out of it. So if you notice here, this is like a step, or in other words, it's a ladder. So that's why we call it as a if else ladder. So when you write the code, it's going to come like a ladder. So let's look at that in action. I'm going to stop my program and I'm going to remove the breakpoint. Just to give an example, I'm not giving you some, not writing any particular logic as such. So if you say if x is greater than 10, okay, then I will put a flower bracket because some of you are very much into that. Okay, yes out x is greater than 10. Okay, and after this, you know, there is an else statement. Okay, and you would have written else like this. If this is a normal if statement. Now what I'm doing is I am putting after this else, I am putting one else statement. Remember, this is one if statement. After this, I am not touching I am not writing else if. This is not syntax, is not proper. Else if. Else is a separate word, if is a separate word, because that this is going to be one more if after that else. It's simple as that, but we just write in one single line. So else if y is greater than 20, then I am going to write yes out y is greater than 20. Okay, again one more condition. This is else. Remember, if I just pull it out, this becomes one more if I just bring it here. Can you see, this is one more if and else statement. So this whole thing is one if statement. This whole thing is one more if statement, if and else. But what I've done is I have combined them. That's simple as that. Okay, it's like I'm joined one if at the back of the other if. So else if, now okay, else I'm supposed to do, I'm going to write the if statement. Else if I write like this, else if z greater than 25, Just this is nothing, I'm just writing some logic here. Okay, yes out, and I'm going to say z is greater than 25. Now I can write one more else if and other thing. I'm going to write else, that you know very well. Else you can put the flower bracket if you really want. Some of you are familiar with that flower bracket. It's not really required because I'm going to write one line at a time. The flower brackets were absolutely not required in these cases because I'm writing one line. If you have one statement, that itself is considered as a block. I'm here. Let me come back to this else part. I don't know. Now what if you want to write this? Will it work? I don't know. Okay. So let's see this, how it's going to work. Let me put the breakpoint here, and let me show you because you can't see what I'm doing. I'm running it in a debug mode. So I'm there at this point, and you can see that x is 100, y is 25, and y is 20, and z is 25. You can see that we are there at this line, and let me zoom out for you, and I'm going to just bring it, and I'm going to put it here. Let's do it in a debug mode. So I'm going to press F7. Before I press F7, the value of x is, if you can't see it, the value of x happens to be 100. 100 is greater than 10. So let's go here and let's type F7. So I'm there. The statement is true. I am executing this. Once you execute the if part, the else part will not be executed. When you say you don't execute the else part, that simply means to say that your program will simply come out of this whole if block, and it's going to reach to this one. So I'm going to just remove that flower bracket so that it's easier for you to see. Okay, so it's going to come to this, the outside statement. Let me do it because you can't see it. I'm not pressed Control F7, so you notice it has just come out here. Okay, so simple as that. Suppose if x is 1, which is less than 10, and if I debug this program one more time, how is it going to work? So I've changed the value of x is 1. So 1 is not definitely, 1 is not greater than 10. So if I press F7, what will happen? This line will not be executed. It will go to the else part. In the else part, there is one more cross verification. So I go and press F7 now, and I am there at this line. So it has ignored this line. It has come to this point. Here I have this y. Y is also 20. The value is also 20. 20 is not greater than 20. 20 is equal to 20. So what happens? This will not be executed. So it will go to the next line. So I'm going to press F7. It goes here because 20 is equal to 20. 20 cannot be greater than 20. So I go here and I have one more statement, z, which is 25. Again, 25 is not greater than 25. So what it must do? It must ignore this line. It must ignore not this one. It must ignore this line, and it must go to the else part. In the else part, what I have? In the else part, I have a statement called as I don't know. So if I press this, I am here. Hope you get the idea how the ladder if really works. You can try this to figure out how this particular program works. There is one other statement that is called as switch statement. We will look at this switch statement in our next class. Thank you for your interest. Let's meet again tomorrow.